Hello, everyone. I'm Brainerd Carey, and today I'm giving a talk on donor-based funding for artists. So, in this webinar, in this talk, what I'm going to articulate is how to get funding from patrons directly for artists, probably like yourself. For visual artists, if you're a painter, a sculptor, make installations. Also for filmmakers, whether you're making documentary, narrative, or experimental films, as well as performers, choreographers, musicians. This will work for any type of artist like that, no matter what your content is. So raise your hand if you're living in the tortured artist myth and you have something you want to do and can't, or you're suffering daily for it, or you have ideas that you wish would happen, maybe an idea for a mural or a large-scale project, and you need funds to make it happen. Or you yearn for something so revolutionary, so life-altering that you will finally become the person who never has to worry about paying the bills and instead focus on your ambitious dreams. You want to make art, paint, make your film, make your mural, community project, political project, or get a bigger studio for a dream series of sculpture and large-scale paintings. Do it all, get it all, win it all without ever having to compromise your integrity as an artist or pandering to what we call the art market. If you're sitting there with your mouth agape wondering how I know this, don't be. I sadly am not clairvoyant. I'm just a regular person, but I've spent 11 years interviewing over 1,000 artists and curators from all over the world. And I know exactly what goes on in an artist's brain when they are struggling in an art market that seems rigged. This is me, Brainerd Carey. I'm an artist, educator, and a Yale University radio host and author of 6 books that you see here, and over 1,000 interviews with artists and curators. And these books are based on my experience as an artist and I've gotten some great shows and I've needed to raise funds. And I'm not talking about pay-to-play scenarios. I'm talking about having a solo show at the Whitney Museum that turns out to have limited funding. And these books were written based on that experience, how I was able to generate funds, and also how other artists do the same. That image is from my first book launch at Rizzoli Books, which was a huge thrill for me. My first book was Making It in the Art World, all published by traditional publishers in New York. So how do you know you're in the perfect place right now? This is for you if you want to secure patrons to fund your art practice so that you can cut back on the hours you work on your day job and make more art. This is for you if your fuse is getting a little shorter every day. Even your family may seem more irritating when you are irritating, that you're compromising a dream that no one is supporting or understanding fully. This is for you if you're sick and tired of enduring humiliating rejections from sponsors and patrons and funding your studio from your own pocket. Let me start by telling you something no well-funded artist will admit in public. So brace yourself. You've been lied to repeatedly, insistently, shamelessly by the art world. Lies like funding has dried up for artists in this political climate, and you need to be rich or connected to get funding. And the most insidious of all, you need to be young or odd or avant-garde somehow. No one wants straight painters who make beautiful images or narrative films. This is exactly what's kept you lost, confused, suffering in obscurity, spending money you don't have, wasting time you owe your loved ones, ignored with art unsold, paying for storage fees instead of getting paid to exhibit your work, and isolated from people you love, alone in a studio and getting hassled by your spouse to give up already because you're not showing or selling art. So no more. That's going to stop now. Now you're here. You're under my wing, under my care, and that alone should make you want to breathe a big sigh of relief because I have proof of what I'm saying. So how will the next 90 minutes or so flip your life around? Wiping the slate clean. This is where I will turn every single thing you know about patrons and funding around. And you will just sit there with a happy look of, oh my God, on your face. can steal all my secrets. This is where you literally get to steal my Praxis Artist Patron Matchmaking method and make it your own. So you never have to listen to the art world tell you why you can't be successful unless you are young or beautiful and political with an MFA and trendy avant-garde work. Keys to the kingdom, prepared to be blown out of your chair, into a new world where humiliating rejection and unfunded projects do not exist. Here is my promise to you today. You will walk out of this webinar with a step-by-step method you can use to find patrons that are interested in funding your particular work without feeling like you're asking for a handout, so that you can get the funding you need for that ambitious dream project you've always been thinking about in as little as 30 days, even if you haven't started the project yet. Here are some of the other gems you'll discover. What never to say in a letter to a potential patron, because when you make this social faux pas, donors perceive you as greedy and don't take your work seriously. How to frame the dream you have, be it a painting or a film, so that it gets funded. And I'm going to explain an old school fundraising technique used by Ilya and Emilia Kabakov, which practically guarantees your letters or meetings will be seen with pleasure and responded to generously. And why you need to add this phrase about your work to your correspondence. Because when you do this, you get ongoing support that continues year after year, as opposed to a one-time donation. I should also mention that you will get a free PDF copy of my book, Fund Your Dreams Like a Creative Artist, if you stay on to the end. So let's talk about wiping the slate clean, shall we? Because that's an important aspect of this. Why must you wipe the slate clean? Well, there's the danger of the wrong method, the danger of the wrong resource, the danger of the wrong execution. So, the danger of the wrong method is artists are usually told to apply to write donor letters this way. Just explain your work and be passionate and sincere. But when you do that, rejection happens and the opportunity is lost. It's not the right method. And the wrong resource. If you're looking for donors in the wrong places, and these are not the kind of people that would donate to anyone, you waste your time and the whole method seems like it's a waste. Or execution. Over the last 5 years, I've had students in my classes raise over 130,000 collectively. So I've seen a lot of exchanges between patrons and artists. And the wrong execution, the wrong presentation, sends your request to the trash bin. Here's irrefutable proof. Patronage has risen steadily in the US and around the world in the past 3 years. 1987, 2008, and 2009 were the only years that didn't see a rise. In 2018, over $410 billion was given in the US alone. And this is happening all over the world. These methods that I'm teaching are worldwide. The majority of that giving came from individuals. Specifically, individuals gave $286 billion, accounting for 70% of all giving. This is the reason that theaters and art centers are not only thriving, but being built all over the world. It's because of patrons who give generously. Here's more proof. I raised money myself as an artist at the beginning of my career and was taught by a wealthy patron in New York City that became my friend and supporter. And she told me what to do and what not to do. One student in my classes overlooked the important advice I received and discussed, and he met with rejection that not only ruined his day, but stopped him from trying again. So the next time you feel like blaming yourself for your problems, remember this: not all of that is your fault. The art world mystifies itself, making the rules of the game hard or impossible to understand, often leaving the artist with a feeling of resentment that there's a clique out there, like a popular high school club that you can't get into. It can be a difficult system to navigate without ease and without stress. Today we will remove the stress and the difficulty and create a plan that will allow you to move into this world of patronage effortlessly. You will learn my secrets for securing patrons and funding, because I have developed a system I call the Praxis Artist Patron Matchmaking Method, which will show you how to find patrons that are interested in funding your particular work without feeling like you're asking for a handout, so that you can get the funding you need for that ambitious dream project you've always been thinking about in as little as 30 days, even if you haven't started the project yet. So I've been doing this for over 10 years. And besides interviewing over 1,000 artists and curators, I've also befriended major fundraisers, like Fang Bui of the Brooklyn Rail, who publishes a magazine in more than one city and does not rely on advertising or sales at all. It's all fundraising. And also the late Jonah Mekis, who raised $2 million a year every year to fund his own avant-garde theater and archive. I've talked to the development directors of major museums, like the Whitney Museum, and asked them about their techniques. I've met with independent fundraisers as well, asked them about their methods, and organizations that do nothing but fundraise for other institutions. That is, they do what's called donor prospecting. I will tell you all of this, but I'm explaining how I developed this method through years of listening and experience in applying these ideas. Again, students in my class have raised over $130,000. So what are patrons? Patrons is the support, encouragement, privilege, or financial aid that an organization or individual bestows to another. In the history of art, arts patronage refers to the support that kings, popes, and the wealthy have provided to artists such as musicians and painters. Patronage allows the artist to pursue ideas or projects that are often not commercially viable, like political or socially active work, but also other work. And to be clear, the number of patrons grows steadily ever since the Renaissance, which is why you see museums flourishing everywhere. So why do patrons give it all? Patronage is hard to understand if you're not a patron yourself or actively seeking one. Patrons give because they have more money than they need and they want to see the arts flourish. In some countries, they also get a tax break for donations. Patrons give to learn more about the arts and to be part of something exciting. It's also a huge pleasure to give. The pleasure of giving money is a known quantity to those who do it. When a check is written, there's a splash of dopamine for the patron in their brain that's literally a kind of a high. It's a much discussed fact that those who often give receive a type of pleasure from it that those who don't will not understand. Again, this is a worldwide phenomenon. If you live in the US, Canada, England, Middle East, Australia, Spain, it's all the same method. And patrons are giving money for the same reason. You know, they want to learn something about the arts. They're interested in seeing the arts flourish. And in many countries, they get a tax break. And patrons give to be part of something that's exciting. It's a huge pleasure to give. So how do patrons choose their areas of support? Patrons are all individuals with different tastes like anyone. And they choose what to give by recognizing what they love most. As individuals, they have a history of giving, and it is as unique as every person's tastes vary, and so does preference for a particular medium. In essence, they choose the same way one would choose the art they like, by seeing work and learning more and then establishing a pattern. How do patrons perceive the person asking for support? They perceive the artist as a very special and unique individual who has the potential to make our lives better. By better, I mean through their art, their mission, their ideas, or just their images or stories they tell. Artists literally make the culture we are in and are seen as the forward-thinking culture makers that you are. So, as a Praxis member, you have access to feedback and case studies from students who have received funding from patrons and sponsors, so you can see what works in the real world and meet other artists that have had this. Here's an example. This comes from the private Facebook group that Praxis members have access to. She says to the people in the group in her posts, "Greetings all. So for all the new peeps, I've been in the group for a few months now. I sent out my first round of letters maybe 3 months ago, and I am finally closing down round 1 of fundraising. My overall goal for my project was $5,000, and in the first round I did $3,901.50, and I got a patron out of it." By a patron, she means someone who's giving her money regularly every month. So very excited. In the next few months, I will move into the next phase, which will include well-known artists, prominent community members, and institutions. Take a deep breath, put the stamp on it, and just send it out. Your job is to write the letter. How others respond is not your part to worry about. I love that because This is not only a case study, it shows how Praxis members are also supportive of other members. Group support is so important. So prospecting donors, this is the Praxis artist-patron matchmaking method. So let's get down to how this works and how you find these people. You can take notes if you want, because you can ask me questions afterwards. What is prospect research? Let me explain. Prospect research is also known as development research or fundraising research. It's a technique through which fundraisers, development teams, and nonprofits gather relevant information about potential donors. It's a matchmaking process. In other words, if you're a large organization, you might hire a prospect research team to help you find potential donors, and then you would take those names and approach them yourself. So introducing the Praxis artist-patron matchmaking method. Step 1 is defining your dream project. Step 2 is prospecting for patrons that would be interested in funding. And step 3 is writing to patrons and having meetings with them. Step 4 is relationship building. But let's go through these steps one at a time. So first, you define your dream project. What do you want funded? Is it a series of paintings? Is it a book, a sculpture, or an installation? A documentary film about eating out or a political issue? Or a community-based work that is politically engaged work or not politically engaged? What is your project? It's defining that. And then prospecting for patrons. How is the list whittled down to best prospects is the question, right? Well, first there's research, which could be local museum board members and trustees, as well as those who sit on the boards of art centers and all the donors to institutions that are listed publicly. Films, books, and other media all have acknowledgments or credits where donors are listed, and through research, that list is then whittled down to the best prospects, which could also include people you have met or already know. And you can see people who have already been donors to work like yours, and refine that list to people who are either close to you geographically or most likely to be interested in your work based on their history of giving. So resources available to Praxis members, there's a lot of them, right? If you're not sure if one source or patron is good or not, you can ask in the group, where I'm available for all questions related to this process. And other Praxis members, as you just saw in that last quote, are often very supportive as well. Ongoing research is essential. Once you have some names and some active donors who are giving you support, it's necessary to keep researching, because you need new donors, new friends to keep the support coming in. You see, it's always good to have more supporters, and once you feel the thrill of support through a large donation, you will want and need more, and you will also have more energy to do so when you see it working. I'm sure you've had an experience like that before. Something you hesitated to do, like ask a gallery for a show, becomes addictive when it works, which is also why the phenomena of the fast rising artist occurs. Success drives more of the same, because you are building confidence. Confidence alone allows you to be bolder, which becomes a cycle of strengthening that cannot be set back easily. It tends to grow and grow. So, as a member of Praxis Center, you'll get support for this process. There's a support group. It's really hard to do for some people to ask for money for dream projects. It can be emotionally draining. So a support group is very important to help you continue with this process. And the students who have raised money tend to be generous. Again, as you saw earlier with that one excerpt, because it's an exciting process when it works. Feedback on your decision and donor list. For example, I'm trying to reach the head of a corporation and not getting through to his secretary. Maybe I should reach out to someone else? How to approach patrons. So this is step 3 and 4 in the master plan of getting support for your work. The next steps are writing to patrons and having meetings with patrons. Writing to patrons starts with, what do you say in a letter to patrons, right? Which is, essential. Well, you begin by explaining your ideas, your needs, or project if you want a donation by email or regular mail, which a majority of the class students do, that is, ask for donations as opposed to a meeting. Or you ask for a meeting where you can talk to them one by one. How do you frame your request? How to frame the dream you have, be it a painting or a film, so that it gets funded. Ilya and Amelia Kabakov are an artist couple that makes installations and other work in many mediums from all over the world. And they use a straightforward technique, asking at the right moment or in a letter. They say this one word, this one sentence. Have you ever thought of investing in a dream? Students use this in a letter that are in my classes, but it's also great to do it in person. And when you do it in person, there in your studio, you ask that question, you pause. You wait till they answer. And they'll usually say, no, I haven't thought of that. Now's your chance to explain what you need funding for. Christo and the late John Claude, who I both knew, I still know Christo, and I've spoken to personally as well as interviewed more than once. He does it another way. He asks, would you like to own a share in this project? It's an odd question, right? And he means a drawing or sketch of the proposed project. Because you're talking to people who have money, right? They're used to doing things like investing and buying shares. So when you talk about investing in a dream and shares in an artwork, it's intriguing to them because you're speaking their language, but in a kind of more poetic way that gets them hooked. As a member of Praxis Center, you'll get the Patrons course with your membership, and you'll also get templates to begin writing your letter. Just fill in the places where your work is explained or adjust the letter. You'll see other students' letters that are successful. You'll also get your letters edited by myself from first draft to last. There are also guest lectures on fundraising, offering more angles on securing support. And then there's relationship building. This is step 4 and really critical in my mind, because if you want ongoing support, I mean, why all this effort and then you just get one donation, right? What you want is to keep getting them. And the biggest complaint from patrons is that they're treated like an ATM machine instead of as the interested person they are, in you, in your art. A relationship means you see them, write to them, and perhaps have lunch with them on a regular basis. And to be clear, there's no strings attached in this process. But it's very important to treat them like any friendship. Take an interest in what they're doing and ask questions. You know, they want to learn about you and the arts. So mistakes to avoid. In a letter or a meeting, it is best to avoid detailing desperate situations, like you're about to be evicted from your home or studio, because that makes the potential patron uncomfortable, because he or she wants to support your dream, and if you say you are so desperate and on the edge, then they are afraid that the money they give you might not go to your dream, but to desperate attempts to get yourself solvent financially, and they don't want to take on that burden. It doesn't mean you can't use some of that money that they give you to pay the rent, but if you pitch it as that's the main issue, as well as your dream, it becomes a little more difficult for them. Another mistake to avoid is when writing to patrons or talking with them. You must research them and take an interest in who they are. It's easy to see with a Google search where they have donated in their main interests. It's as simple as doing a search to see what they have been up to. Address those interests in a letter and address those interests in a personal meeting. If you do not address this, you may get a donation once, but ongoing support will be difficult to get. Always add a phrase in a letter about who the donor is, or mention it when you're talking to them. They're interested in you, but they also want you to be aware of who they are. They want to learn from you. And if you know who they are and what they've given to, it makes it much more interesting for you as well. As a member of Praxis Center, you'll have my attention to this very issue so that you'll not make these mistakes and will continue to succeed in this process. The support of a community is also critical for this kind of work because it's easy to feel that you're not worth the money or that your work is not worth it, and it takes encouragement and support to help you get over that. That is what membership also provides. Now, another issue is corporate sponsorship. I've had Apple Computers give me over $20,000 in equipment for an exhibition, and Bose Sound gave me another $15,000 in equipment, and Bose also gave me cash. How did I get that? It was by calling, and this may seem crazy, but I made a lot of calls, and I got a lot of, people who weren't the right people, and I kept calling till I found someone. And initially I thought it was their marketing department, but what I found was some of the big places, there's a department called buzz marketing or product placement. And when I eventually sent them a letter, I simply asked for the equipment or cash I needed and explained how it would be visible to the public. Because what I learned is these buzz marketing or product placement departments that many corporations have, when you watch a movie or television show and you see Apple computers or other recognizable products, what's happening is they're either getting those products for free from the corporations to use in their movies, or the corporations are even giving them money to put them in there. The corporations want visibility. Apple didn't want to be listed on my invites as a sponsor. They're not interested in sponsoring art exhibits. They're interested in having visibility. But of course it is sponsorship for you. When you get $20,000 in equipment and Apple tells you to keep it, they don't want it back, you can also sell that equipment, which is what I did, and they were happy with, and have that as cash afterwards. So then there's something called fiscal sponsorship, which is important to understand. Most major donors who want to give you more than $5,000 in a donation will want to give that to a nonprofit, a non-governmental organization, or what's also known as a 501c3 organization that's tax exempt. You can raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in smaller donations, but one-time donations of larger amounts usually requires an official nonprofit entity. Don't worry, there's a way around that, and it's called fiscal sponsorship. And an organization called Fractured Atlas does just that. There are many places like Fractured Atlas all over the world, and their work is simple. If patrons want to write a check to you and get a full tax deduction, they write it to Fractured Atlas, who then writes you a check for the same amount minus a 7% fee for handling the transaction. That 7% in my mind is reasonable because they have to do books perfectly. So everybody is, this is a legal IRS issue or tax issue, whatever country you're in, and it has to be done perfectly. So Fractured Atlas takes 7% for managing the issue and sends you the rest. So here's a diagram of how that works, essentially. If patrons need a full tax deduction and want to write a check to you, you can use Fractured Atlas. So the patron writes the check to Fractured Atlas, mails it to them at your request. Fractured Atlas receives the check as a nonprofit, giving the patron a full tax deduction. Fractured Atlas deducts 7% from the check and writes you a check with a minus 7%. So if you get a $10,000 donation, they take $700 for processing that and getting it to you, and you're left with $9,200. I've used them a lot. I think it's fantastic, and many students in the class have also used them. To use Fractured Atlas, you must become a member of their organization for $10 a month. By the way, I don't get anything from promoting Fractured Atlas or anything from that fee. As a member of Praxis Center, though, because they know that I talk about them, you'll get the first 6 months of that membership free if you need to use Fractured Atlas. And also, I'll help you with the process of how to use them to your best advantage, which means setting up your donor page with them. So now you see what's happening here as it fits into your step-by-step roadmap, along with mistakes not to make and important methods to always execute. So I know this is a lot, right? Is your head exploding yet? Let me ask you this. If there was a breathtakingly easy way to navigate the highest tiers of the art world without endless phone calls, emails, and other business stuff so that you can make more art and finally get the funding you deserve in as little as 1 year, would you take it? Even if you think, I can't write, that's why I'm an artist, and that's why I never get grants or residencies or anything else. And who knows, maybe my art isn't good enough or trendy enough. Even if you can't go to every show or get out easily because you're older or disabled or not near a big city, even if you have too much art in storage and must work all day to pay the bills and your spouse is not very supportive, even if you've tried all this before and it never seems to work and you always end up in the same place with less money, more rejections, sound a bit out there, right? Well, allow me to introduce some case studies. Here's Ruth to begin with.
Hi, my name is Ruth Chase, and I'm a visual artist. I have been in praxis for 2 years, and what I have gotten out of it is mostly the community. I mean, I live in a small town, and a lot of my work really isn't relatable to where I live. So the community of artists has been phenomenal. Many people doing what I'm doing, and many more people doing far more than what I'm doing. So I learn a lot from them, but also from the workshops that Brainerd has, as well as the professionals that come in to teach these workshops, has really kept me on top of the latest information about how to get into museums and grant writing and on and on and on. Anyhow, thank you, Brainerd. I love Praxis, and thank you for starting it.
So that was Ruth, and this is Barry. Barry Wingard. He writes in a private Facebook post that's only for the group. I want to thank everyone for their encouragement. Right, this is about support over the past month. I finally got up the nerve Friday to send out by snail mail my letters, and they landed in their mailboxes today. I got my first 1,600 promised tonight over the phone. Yippee! Brainerd Carey was so right. I was thanked repeatedly for allowing my work to be sponsored. Talk about being excited. Wow. I did my email campaign last night, and very early this morning, I got my first response back. I have had emails, texts, and phone calls all day asking questions. I don't know where all of this is going, but it's a fun ride so far. If you have been sitting on the fence with sending out your letters, just do it. Heaven knows I've been sick worrying about it. What a waste of my time. And of course, there's lots of comments. Everybody's talking about it. And I'll tell you what happened to Barry shortly, too. There's another study, Allison Wells. Just beginning, right? She writes, I sent out a few letters via email this morning. I got my first PayPal donation. So there's a lot of ways to receive things. Thank you for telling me about the paypal.me link. And, for those who don't know, and she begins explaining what she's doing, there's her first $50 donation. Here's her next donation. I was out of town for a few weeks. When I came back yesterday, I was pleasantly surprised to see 2 checks waiting. I love it when people post images of checks, and those are her 2 checks for $1,000. So what if I told you it takes less time each week than your grocery shopping? Typically, an artist in the school sees rapid progress in a year, just working at this 30 minutes a week. What if I told you it's as easy as filling in the blanks? You get templates for contacting patrons, as well as scripts for calling them. All you have to do is fill them out. It's almost all done for you. What if I told you even a first-year art student with no experience can do it, without any training? Or that a mid-career artist who has gallery representation for years and is now out of a gallery can also do it? That you won't even have to make endless phone calls, emails, and business stuff, because I know that you just want to make art, not spend all your time asking for support. That you don't even need to be young, beautiful, big city artist with trendy avant-garde work. That all it takes is to have a little faith. And the faith that I'm talking about is the faith that others will have in you. Because when someone supports your work or becomes a patron, it's like it feels as though they believe in you, which they do. But it starts with you believing it is possible, and then you can accept that support as well. Those who have the faith and take the leap are rewarded with exhibits and patrons and grants and prestigious biennials and press and sales. Seems impossible. Yes? Here's some people from the private Facebook group. Did a show at a local gallery. Thanks for the encouragement. This is my confirmation of my first sponsor donation. Woo! Yael says, I'm thrilled to be included as one of 14 new exhibitions in a new building. I mean, we're teaching how to get recognition and raise money in all these classes. I just found out I was accepted into my first museum through a regional call. That was Ruth that you just heard speaking before. Jeffrey was also just accepted into show. And Andre just got into an artist residency. She's thrilled. Laura Shabbat, I got $1,500 using this letter. It was approved by Fractured Atlas, my fiscal sponsor, that I learned about through this course. It would be embarrassing to tell you all how much time it took to write this, but I want a year in the studio with all of my heart. And of course, she shows the letter, which you'll see. You see everybody's letters, hopes that all this happened. Coverage in the national newspaper, the Times, Scottish edition. Through press release, I forwarded to a journalist, and Hope also said about $50 came from a local grocer. My opening tonight, she was just beginning. Sarah Kennedy, who you'll hear more from later. I put out letters to local businesses to sponsor my upcoming Bay Area performance of my own one-woman show, and so far one has said yes to $100 and one for $200. I'm so excited this is working. That covers half my production cost. Sarah's nearing $10,000 in donations as of this moment when I'm giving this talk. Barbara Peacock, she sold 5 prints to the Lauder Collection. These are things that we walk people through. It's her first sale of work, and she wants to say, I want to learn more from Praxis about galleries. And Jackson said she got 400 in donations and sold a drawing for $225. Now off to write more letters. You see how addictive it becomes? She wants more. Alexander says, I got $1,000 today. I want to add that it was a face-to-face conversation showing the letters. I was prepared to send the patron, and he just sat down and wrote out two prepared money orders. So, if you want to wake up from an email from a patron with a donation, start your day by making art instead of business stuff on social media because a check for that $10,000 just came through in the mail, or that patron donation covered most of the expenses. You want to have lunch with a patron and a collector friend of his who wants to purchase multiple pieces. You want to go to bed satisfied, gratified, feeling like a rising artist who's finally getting the recognition she deserves in the art world. Go through your week with more time in the studio and far less resentment at the art market because other people are believing in you and proving it by buying your work and being a patron. If you want to look at your calendar and see a winter residency in Berlin, then an exhibit there, and off to see the Venice Biennial, and a few other major biennials around the globe, and a summer residency in Italy or Holland, all funded in full by your sponsors. Your calendar for the year says this artist has made it. I want that for you, right here, right now. So introducing the Praxis Center membership, the VIP edition. Everything you need to make it in the art world in one place. It shows you how the art world really works so you can get more exhibitions, more recognitions, more patrons, and more sales this year. It helps you get into prestigious shows and museums and biennials, and finally get the kind of international recognition and raving reviews that actually lead to sales. It helps you get grants and sponsors and patrons to support your work with personal support from professional editors, gallerists, and grant writers, like myself, without the need to do endless phone calls, emails, and business stuff, without the need to face humiliating rejection and the dreaded silence of an email that hasn't been responded to, in as little as 1 year, even if your art isn't trendy or avant-garde, even if you can't write or network or negotiate and suck at all the business stuff, even if you can't go out to shows or are not near a big city. It seems impossible, right? Allow me to introduce Barry. Remember him? Raised 1,600, so then he writes next, today has been a whirlwind type of day. I have lots I want to share with all of you, but the details are not finalized yet. But I will tell you my project was completely funded by one patron today. All 17,600. I still have the other 1,600 coming in the mail this week. I still can't believe it. It's a big amount of money, right? 17,600 from one patron. Thank you, Brainerd Carey, for teaching this class. And I want to thank all of you that nudged me to jump in and do it. And the reason he's thanking everyone for nudging him is because he was also posting in the group, well, I got my letter, Brainerd edited it, I'm ready to go, but I just feel like, there's a lot of sharks out there. He was afraid. He was afraid to do it. The class nudged him, pushed him, and look what happened. Sarah Kennedy is another one I've mentioned here. I put out letters to local businesses to sponsor my upcoming Bay Area performance of my one-woman show. And so far, one has said yes to $100 and one for $200. I'm excited this is working. Covers half my production. Question: what's the best way to collect the money? If I collect through PayPal, I imagine I'll pay the fees. Everyone's always asking questions about this process. And here's Sarah in her own words talking about it.
Hey there,
I'm Sarah Kennedy. I'm a student at the Praxis Center with Brainard Carey. I took the course, the Patrons and Sponsors course, and I just want to say it has been a total game changer for me as an artist. I went from feeling like it was annoying if I tried to ask for money for my art to feeling really confident and comfortable asking for money. It's been a total mind shift for me. And so far, using the methods that I learned on the Patrons and Sponsors class, I've raised almost $7,000 for my one-woman show, and I feel like I'm just at the beginning. I feel really confident that I can raise more money, and being a part of the community has been so helpful. Getting help from Brainard, learning all of his methods. I highly recommend it if you're an artist.
So there's Sarah's method, right? Raise 7,000. It was another 8,000 when I talked to her last, and now it's much more, closer to 10,000. And here's Rose. She was looking for shows. The other day I was offered a major solo show at a college, completely out of the blue, and she posted this in the private group, by the way. And you'll meet these people and see these comments. Because the curator found my work online. Today I got an email from the producer of Maryland's public television artwork series, and they want to feature my work. I know it's local, but I watched that show, and if you're into art, it's kind of a big deal here. After I got done freaking out, I realized that all of this happened after I updated my bio and artist statement with the help from Brainard Carey and Cheryl McGinnis. It cannot be a coincidence. I took my work to the next level as of September when I started doing landscapes, and this was like my 8th attempt at getting the artist statement right. But all of this processing of who I am as an artist that really helped me make my authenticity shine through and be something that people really wanted was done as a result of this group. I have been a member for almost a year. All I can say is keep going. Keep upping your game, making authentic, truly original work. Listen to Brainard and Cheryl and Julia Tolstrup on presenting that work. Those are all people in the classroom. If you are called to be an artist, it's not an easy road, but it's a sacred duty. And you can get there. Again, you'll meet her in the class as well as other people. Here's a small sample of the gems in your VIP edition of Praxis Center membership. How to use these insider tactics for a never-ending supply of exhibits in prestigious galleries, museums, and biennials. Why you need to question every single person who tells you to do work for free to get exposure, and what to do instead if you want recognition from art critics, glowing reviews all over the press, and powerful curators discovering your work. What never to do in artist statements, bios, and press releases if you want to avoid humiliating rejections. And 3 idiot-proof ways to get sponsors and patrons so that you can finally get funding for your practice and make art without financial pressures. The letters are already written. The simple test that instantly identifies the 5 application landmines you have been stepping on all these years. This is why you never get grants. And 10 little tricks that once understood and practiced will make you a master of getting attention online so that everyone knows who you are and what kind of art you make and tells you so in comments. You also get 9 online courses so you can learn how the art world really works from the comfort of your home at your own pace without paying for travel and lodging. Getting your art exhibited. Walk you through the whole process of getting your art shown, letter templates, scripts to call galleries, a virtual classroom where you can ask questions and get feedback from a professional gallerist. Grant writing. How to find, write, and win those applications. By the end of the course, you'll have a completed grant you can be proud of and fresh grant lists and opportunities given to you every month. Artist statements, bios, and press releases. How to write yours so grant agencies, galleries, and journalists can't help but call you back. And an editor will personally edit your statement and bio in the classroom. That's Julia Tolstrup. Class 4s on social media strategy and web design. Your website will be reviewed. Steps to build or redesign your website and social media secrets to get discovered online with minimum effort. Also selling art online. It'll take you by the hand and walk you through every step you need to build an online sales strategy and become a business representative for your art. Kickstarter. Give you support for all you need to know about launching a successful Kickstarter project, including how to contact celebrities and high-profile individuals. Time management. How do you do all this stuff, right? There's methods that people use. So you can be traveling around the world, managing a lot of different projects. Taxes and financial planning is essential, knowing how to manage that to your advantage. And the class in Art Theory and Essential Readings for Artists is also a great one, which you'll get, and you can take any of these in any order you want, and that's books to read and discuss, which will give context to your work and help when writing about your work. With these industry tactics at your fingertips, you go from, I give up, I'm just going to paint in obscurity, the art market's bullshit anyway, to, wow, I've made it. I'm actually an internationally successful artist now, in as little as 1 year. But that's not all. You also get the Insider Artist Lounge. These are expert lectures from curators, experts on residencies, dealers, grant writers, so you can discover the secrets that make or break art careers. The people who are doing that professionally explain it. There's expert lectures, 23 and counting. They keep coming on all kinds of topics that are essential. You can ask any of these experts questions in the group. You can always find the right way forward if you get lost or confused. Or as you navigate the higher tiers of the art market, there's a gallerist, a dealer, a curator, and a writer who are there to answer questions. And there's a new expert talk each month. For the first time, insider secrets about the art world game is taught directly by people who have succeeded at what they teach, like gallerists or grant writers, so that you know how this really works. And the answer to that, how the hell did that mediocre artist get that show? You'll know. And then there's an editor who will personally edit your artist statement and bio so you can stand out from the crowd and wow grant agencies and galleries. And if you're not sure what to read into a gallery's response, ask a professional gallerist in the group. Never again spend weeks agonizing over what you do and whether they hate your work. New list published every month about grants and residencies. Be the first to know when a grant or residency is accepting applications. And there's access to a community of artists, art professionals, and teachers, so you never feel isolated in your practice again and get the practical and emotional support you need to thrive as a successful artist. Without a support system, it's nearly impossible to be an artist. Van Gogh had Theo. Who do you have? I've been quoting from these private Facebook groups so you can see the kind of support that people give. You'll also get a copy of my book, Making It in the Art World, a digital download. And for artists who feel like they want to be very important artists and purchase the VIP edition of Praxis Center, you get patrons and sponsors for artists, which has always been my signature course because it's wonderful to be able to get money for what you do without any strings attached. And so you'll know how to find the names of local patrons, how to meet them, how to befriend them, and create lasting patrons, and master the art of approaching businesses for sponsorship, all while creating a valuable network of peers, colleagues, and experts in the field. There's also continued support from a professional editor. I will edit many of them for patrons and sponsors as long as you remain in the program, so you can keep getting your letters and applications edited. If you're not sure what to read into a sponsor's response, ask questions in the online classroom, and you'll have it reviewed personally by myself as well as other students. You'll get your artist's website reviewed by me. VIP access to all of my future books ahead of the general public. You'll get advanced digital review copies like the art critics and curators in the author's inner circle. That amounts to a very realistic value of about $6,570 a year, or $547 a month. Good thing I'm not charging you that. I'm not even charging you a quarter of that, and still giving you 10 times more value, more impact, more results. But there's a catch. You can only get this price within the next 5 days. After that, the price goes back to full. So here is the full course and what you can have. Now, right now, you can get Praxis membership for $59 a month. You get access to the non-online courses, the 8 starter bonuses, plus the VIP bonuses. You get it all instantly. Start using it within the next 60 seconds and start seeing results immediately. So there are a few hard questions for you. Here you go. Would you rather get exhibited internationally or keep dealing with how unfair the art world is as you pay another month's storage fees for all your unsold artwork? Would you rather be a starving artist who toils away in obscurity or an international artist everyone envies with generous patrons and sponsors? Would you rather have a small, cramped studio and an apartment, or a big studio and a comfortable home? Because that's all it boils down to, choices. If all this system does is to get you the freedom to be, do, or live the way you desire, or get you from toiling away in obscurity to getting the pure recognition and commercial success you deserve, or finally allow you to break free from paying for a show and not selling art, would you agree that $59 a month is a tiny price to pay? It's almost insignificant, really. There's a lot you'll get for that, which is all outlined here. You really only have three options at this point. You can choose to hire a high-priced consultant and pay them thousands with no guarantees. You can choose to do it on your own with no help, and then there's the dreaded silence, unreturned emails, leaving you without wind in your sails. You can choose to change paths altogether and get an MFA with no courses on how to get your work sold and end up in the same place, less money, more rejections, but you can talk about your work. The choice is yours. You can have it for $59 a month, or the annual is $595 a year, where you'll save 18%. I should remind you that there is absolutely no risk for you to try this, literally zero negative consequences. You can buy without worrying about losing your money. We offer 30-day guarantees, and your dignity. We don't shame you for refunding. The only thing you stand to lose is the humiliation of rejection, of obscurity, right? Of watching artists who are worse than you making more. So unless you enjoy getting hassled by your spouse to give up already because you're not showing or selling art, and being miserable is your preferred state of being, which I doubt, go to the links below and join me. So you can do what Barry did, right? Raise that $17,600. So you can overcome what Rose overcame and have exhibitions, television, press, and all that she got. So you can have the life Sarah chose, traveling around the country with her one-woman show, raising thousands of dollars. This is your chance, and now is your time. It's monthly, $59, or annually, $595. I hope to see you all in the classes. If you have any questions, you can ask me. But if you want to join up for this membership, it's available at this price for the next 5 days. And as I said, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So I hope to see you there. It would be thrilling to have you in this class, and you'll meet other students, all the ones I've mentioned, and more. I want to thank you for watching this and wish you a great day. Thank you so much, and don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, if you're in the classroom, I look forward to seeing you and meeting you and knowing more about your art and your dreams. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.